What is up with you guys today? Dallas Mavericks fans, MFFLs all over the place. The Dallas Mavericks moved up to 6-1 and in second place in this early season Western Conference standings, sitting at a 6-1 record. 3-0 at home, 3-1 on the road, defeating the upstart, young, hot Orlando Magic early on this season, dropping them to 4-3. The Dallas Mavericks took down the Orlando Magic last night, 117-102. It was a game that had a few contributors. It wasn't, of course, just one of your games where you're talking about a Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. Those are the easy guys to talk about. Those are your main scorers, predominantly more times than not. But the Dallas Mavericks had a complete team effort last night, and it wasn't even the freshest start, but the team stuck with it and took care of business.
Once again, the Dallas Mavericks moved to 6-1 on this early season with a 117-102 defeat of the Orlando Magic, moving them now to 4-3 in the Eastern Conference standings. The Dallas Mavericks last night, again, it was a team effort. You had, of course, guys like Luka Doncic being a +7 and a +-, 29 points. We're talking about 3 total rebounds, 6 assists. It was a game that pretty much saw Luka Doncic. I don't want to say it was a bad game. Again, we're talking about a guy that goes 9 of 17 on field goals, 5 of 10 on 3. A guy, again, and a lot of that was, I said, you want to say that doing some of the hefty lifting in the fourth quarter for this team when it came up, and it was very needed. Of course, in addition to Kyrie Irving, +18 in the ± in this game, 21 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, and also Luka Doncic had 2 steals. So again, we're seeing some more perimeter, I guess you want to say perimeter airtight defense from a guy like Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving on this early season. Of course, it's still a work in progress. We do know we've always been mainly looking for that guy to help be that stalwart, defensive stalwart in the middle of this defense. Of course, we're talking about the big man position more times than not, rim protection, shot blocking. But seeing Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic make it a valid point and a strong point early on in this season to show that they can be some defensive players. Again, defensive minded. Again, Luka Doncic, we're talking about Kyrie Irving, whether his size, his stature, he's going to have limitations defensively. Luka Doncic is not the quickest, we're talking about with his feet on the defensive side. So, of course, he's going to have his own limitations. But the number one thing, of course, with defense is what? It's effort. So we're seeing guys like that. Derrick Jones Jr., we've known what he's brought to this starting lineup early on in the season, playing 28 minutes, getting you 5 points. But again, a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., is predominantly gonna be one of those just perimeter guys that's gonna help. We put lots of pressure on guys. We know, especially in the NBA. You're talking about guys. You have your Jason Tatums, you have your Anthony Edwards type players. You have these guys that are gonna be, again, a little bit of worry. We saw what we got used to with a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith over the last few years with the Dallas Mavericks. That was pretty much one of our guys. We're talking about perimeter defenders. Also, a guy like Reggie Bullock we became accustomed to. But seeing what Derrick Jones Jr. is adding, and also, of course, I can say this every single night, Grant Williams adding in 13 points of another +18. We're talking about on a ±. A guy like Grant Williams, he's here to knock down shots. We're talking about going 2 of 5 from 3, 5 of 9 total field goals in 33 minutes. What I'm going to say, the number one thing, especially if you're not really a Boston Celtics fan, you hadn't gotten really used to watching a guy like Grant Williams play regularly. The number one thing you can notice is that he has more to his offensive game than just being a spot-up shooter. Now, we're not talking about he's the quickest guy to the basket or anything like that, but he has a little post-up game. He can hit a knockdown. We saw him a little bit knock down a couple turnaround little fadeaway shots in this early season. So Grant Williams is a guy that's I want to say we can look up at the end of the season. We already know. Again, they're talking about projections as we're going right now. We're playing well to start this season. But we know Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, these are guys you're going to be looking at saying, who's your team MVP? I can see it being a guy like Grant Williams in the long run because it's what he adds on stuff that is not necessarily going to show up on the stat sheet. We're talking about just keeping guys going throughout the season. We're talking about a guy, again, I've talked about already a couple games ago, I believe at least. We hear Grant Williams talking in post-game press conference about how he's willing to take technicals for a guy like Luka Doncic. Just to let him know he has his back, Luka has his back, and it's an entire team effort that we're going to be getting every single night. So Grant Williams has been a major addition. Of course, Derek Lively, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 5 fouls. He gets 2 early offensive fouls. Again, it kind of starts off the trouble. We're still talking about a guy in 10 points, 5 rebounds, and only 16 minutes of play. Derek Lively with a block and a steal. We're talking about Derek Lively. At this point, you can't really say anything more than how he's just been very impressive. Of course, these nights are going to come. We're talking about he's, again, still a young guy. I believe still 19 years old. Derek Lively still trying to get himself used to what the game of basketball is in the NBA, because we know it's a physicality type thing. And it's every single night. Sometimes you're going to have these refs they're going to call little chippy fouls here and there. And again, sometimes they can get you in some trouble. But what we've seen is over the last few games, Derek Lively has kind of learned how to tone himself down when it comes to just not getting to early foul trouble the last couple games. So if we can keep working on that, then we're going to be good to go, because we already know Dwight Powell, and again, he ends up playing 28 minutes, 7 points, plus 14 in the plus minus, whatever that means. But going 3 of 5 on free throws and 2 of 2 on field goals. Dwight Powell, we know what he has been for this team the last recent years, being our starter. Again, reluctantly to a lot of Dallas Mavericks fans, especially in this fan base, we're not looking for a guy like Dwight Powell to be your main starter, because we do know at the end of the day, that's not something I'm going to look at and say that that's going to be something that can be very productive throughout the entire postseason, because we do know we're talking about going against guys like Nikola Jokic, you possibly will face again. There's not really a way to guard and cover guys like that. They're going to get theirs. But we do know in the low post, Dwight Powell can be a weakness, because teams will attack and go after that position a lot. And when you see a guy like Dwight Powell, at the end of the day, the number one thing you will always notice is that he has just that intensity, and he will play hard, and you can't coach that. So Dwight Powell, he did get a nice, good 28 minutes in there, helped his team out with a guy like Derek Lively in foul trouble. Tim Hardaway Jr., early on in this season, this is a guy you can possibly be saying is maybe an early starter. We're talking about in the contention of being one of those sixth man awards. Again, it's a long season. We know what that is. But we already know, especially going through preseason training camp, all that stuff, the summer league. We saw that Dallas Mavericks were giving a guy like Jaden Hardy so many opportunities to show that he can be that next guy and one of those bucket getters for this team. He's still a work in progress. 11 minutes for Jaden Hardy and 5 points. But Tim Hardaway Jr., 8 of 16 on field goals, 4 of 11 on the three-point line. In 31 minutes, 21 points, 6 rebounds. Tim Hardaway Jr. has played well. Of course, he gets a lot of flack because, again, he is a microwave shooter. He's either going to be hot, and sometimes those same hot games can sometimes lead to a lot of cold games because he's going to shoot. One thing he will do is be confident enough to put these shots up. So Tim Hardaway Jr. has been a very vital point to this 6-1 star for the Dallas Mavericks. He has shown himself to be a guy that you can count on, a guy that you can see. You know what? If we're having a slow start offensively, a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be able to step in and show that he can be one of those special players for us. Again, we're talking about even not a guy we're looking at to consistently get you 20 points or not, but a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. on any given night, he could be the difference between a win and a loss. Also, finally, we're talking about Josh Green in 20 minutes, I believe, 6 points, going 2 of 3 on field goals. Josh Green at this point, you can't always get too up or too low on his scoring because a lot of times I'll kind of use it the same way we talk about a guy like Grant Williams. It's not always going to be on the stat sheet what a guy like Josh Green is going to be able to bring. Sometimes it's just that energy. Sometimes it's one of those quick steals. Again, leads out to transition. We saw this team, especially the Dallas Mavericks, get out to a little better start yesterday in the second half of the game. Again, the Orlando Magic, again, they were showing their youth. It was a second night of a back-to-back for the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, we played the Charlotte Hornets last night in another win. But so the Dallas Mavericks are going to have to come out there and deal with just the irritation that a young team like the Orlando Magic, again, is we're going to bring you on the second night of a back-to-back. So it's just good that the team took care of business, handled what they needed to take care of, and you can't complain much about that.
You have Paolo Banchero for the Orlando Magic pouring in 22 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. I believe going 6 of 6 from free throws in 37 minutes. Also, Mo Wagner and Cole Anthony pouring in 19 off the bench for the Orlando Magic. The Dallas Mavericks were outscored, I believe, a final score was at 66-53 in the first half. And in the second half, the Dallas Mavericks outscored the Orlando Magic 64-36. So the Dallas Mavericks completely flipped this game over. Again, defensive intensity picked up completely in the second half. You could tell instantly. Again, we're talking about guys, it's a team effort. That's the number one thing I'm just most grateful for just watching this team early on. Last season, we saw so many times it was Luka Doncic or nothing. nothing, especially before the trade of Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith. It was Luka Doncic or nothing. And again, we cannot win consistently with that because again, it's more, I was gonna say it's easier, but it's much more, I guess, sustainable to slow down one guy or just let one guy get all the points and get all the buckets and set up all the plays, be the main playmaker, and then just let everybody else kind of lose them games themselves if they do not have the ability to take over. And we saw again, that's why I said I was so big on this team just not being so dominant on 3 and D type players. You want more versatile players that can get their own shots if a play breaks down. We've seen guys like Kyrie Irving. Of course, we know what Kyrie can do with the ball in his hands. We see Luka Doncic just trusting his teammates more. Again, we're not talking about Luka Doncic completely running pick and roll every single possession, it seems. Jason Kidd is having to let other guys work. Luka Doncic himself is being more confident and let guys work. We see guys like Josh Green. He can take the ball to the rim. We're not talking about the most proficient, but guys like Grant Williams, Derrick Jones Jr., they have the ability to take someone off the dribble if plays break down. So the Dallas Mavericks are now sitting at 6-1 once again. They have made this thing full, complete turnover from last season. Again, we're talking about getting off to a hot start. That's the number one thing this team was looking to do when this new regular season, finally approached. Because again, you cannot be the team that is going to be Luka Doncic heavy to the point where it's to the detriment of the rest of the roster buildup. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to add as many valuable pieces to this team as possible, and the Dallas Mavericks are now starting to actually do that. The next game for the Dallas Mavericks will be against the Toronto Raptors on Wednesday. The Toronto Raptors, I believe, are now sitting at 3-4. The Dallas Mavericks sitting at 6-1 once again. So this team has now had to show that they have the ability to take advantage of teams that are deemed weaker than them. Again, it's still early in the season. We don't really know what teams are completely, but for the Dallas Mavericks right now, this is a game you should really look to focus and take control of as early as you can. It is a home game, so the Dallas Mavericks can find themselves being in position. Again, we know playoff seeding, especially with this in-season tournament, it's a little bit of change going out throughout this new regular season, but the Dallas Mavericks want to get themselves at the highest potential seeding because we do know having home court advantage, especially with the players that we have on this team, that could possibly be long, and a long season, but that could possibly be huge for the Dallas Mavericks. So hopefully we can take care of business. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and definitely like, because again, we want to boost those algorithms up. The more you guys like the videos, the easier it is to share the videos, the easier it is for us to boost the algorithms that it can get around to the rest of the Dallas Mavericks community. I appreciate you guys for all the support. And as always, go Mavs.